Okay, folks, I think YouTube cut me off there in mid-sentence on the news and views. This is part two, and if this works, I will upload two news and views, part one and part two. I'm sorry about that. For whatever reason, YouTube crashed on me. In any case, I was talking about how the gold rehypothecation story appears now to be trickling into some of the major media outlets. In other words, it's a story that's not going away. And just when we cut out, I was talking about the fact that I suspect that the suicides of these two bankers at JP Morgan Chase, the sudden sell-off or buyout of JP Morgan gold inventory, about 44% of their gold inventory, 321,500 ounces, folks, in 4 days. All right, that's about $400 million. Now, I'm convinced that all of this is connected to the story about the German gold repatriation and all of the rumors that are now so prevalent on the internet from various websites that all of this is the gold rehypothecation coming home to roost. Now, I said I was going to crawl way out on the end of my twig of high-octane speculation, and in fact, I think maybe this would qualify as oxygen-deprived speculation, because I want to go way back to an incident that occurred in 1928. I've written about it on this website. I've even written about it in a couple of books, where the then Reichsbank president, Hjalmar Schacht, paid a visit to the New York Federal Reserve. You have to remember, Schacht was born in the United States, immigrated back to Germany, and became Reichsbank president for a period under the Weimar Republic and then for a period under Adolf Hitler. All right? So Schacht is visiting the New York Federal Reserve with his good friend Ben Strong, taking him on a tour of the vaults. And all of a sudden, the staff informs Strong that they cannot find the Reichsbank gold. And Schacht, in his memoirs, said that he smiled and said, "That's okay, I know you're good for it." Now, Schacht wrote his memoirs after the war, and there was always a bit of suspicion that Schacht got a slap on the wrist at the Nuremberg tribunals because he either blackmailed the Western powers that be or they knew that he knew something. And I suspect that what he knew and what he put in his memoirs is just the tip of the iceberg. I suspect that what the episode with Schacht means is that they were rehypothecating gold for a long, long time, not just in connection with what I've been talking about with this hidden system of finance, but as part of the credit creation during World War I to finance the war. I suspect this is where it's beginning, and I suspect this is why after World War II they're so eager to put into place this hidden system of finance using all that Axis gold and plunder. In other words, it was a way for them to clear the books in a certain sense. Now, there's something else I want to add to this speculation, and that is the German part of this story. If we look at that, I strongly suspect that if you add up the Schacht incident and then another incident in 1968 that doesn't get talked about, but it's part of this story, where Germany again requested way back in 1968 a repatriation of some of its gold. When that gold was finally given back to West Germany, it came in the form of non-good delivery gold. In other words, it was coin gold. It was gold that had been alloyed with other metals to produce coins. All right, and the reason that that's important is you've got to remember that when bullion is circulated in coins, usually it's circulated so that the intrinsic value of the bullion in the coin is less than the stamped value, the legal value of the coin. All right. The reason for that is if it's more than the value of the stamp value of the coin, people tend to hoard the coin, melt down the bullion, and so on and so forth. You can't have that. So this is an old tactic and technique that people need to remember about bullion coins. It was that kind of bullion that was returned to West Germany in 1968. So in other words, what I'm trying to point out here is there are two incidents in history that we have clear indicators that the German government knew that something was fishy in Western finances. The shock incident of 1928 and the gold repatriation incident of 1968. So that suggests to me something else, folks, that's very, very important, and that is that in all the calls for gold repatriation, the German government may already know that the gold isn't there. And that raises the question of why the German government would be calling for the repatriation of its gold. Now, set aside the fact that many Germans, rightly, I think, want an accounting of their nation's gold and what's happened to it in Western vaults. Can't blame them, all right? But what I'm concerned with is the German government itself. Why is there this acquiescence and call for the repatriation of its gold? And I suspect that now we're getting into the realm of geopolitics, and I'm crawling way out on a limb here. I suspect that when Germany is doing this, it knows full well the gold has been rehypothecated. It knows full well that it cannot easily be delivered to Germany because of all the leases. They've only recovered about 5 tons of real gold from the Fed and about 37 tons so far from other central banks back to Germany. So I suspect that this is part of an orchestrated geopolitical agenda. All right, this is my real suspicion. And you'll notice that it's happening at the same time that China's buying gold as fast as it can, for that matter, India, and so on and so forth. I suspect that this portends a real rift between the financial powers on the continent of Europe, and in particularly inside of Germany on the one hand, and the Anglo-American elite on the other. And I would include France, at least as far as the gold story is concerned, in that camp. So there's also a bit of a rift, not a big one, but a bit of a rift between Germany and France on this issue, all right? I suspect, however, that France is caught in a dangerous position because so much of France's economy is tied in with Germany, particularly with respect to military and security issues. So I think France here is kind of odd man out, but I think the German repatriation calls are based on real knowledge of the system and the fact that that gold is not there. So in other words, Germany is playing a role where it's deliberately calling into question the soundness of the Anglo-American system and the dollar. And that's very perplexing. You have to stop and think about the implications of that, why they would be wanting to do that, or why they would be entertaining that possibility. That's a very, very disturbing clue. Now, if that is indeed part of the plan, part of the agenda, then I'm going to suggest that you're going to see more and more joint German-Russian announcements on European security, on financial affairs, more German-Chinese announcements and cultural exchanges and trade missions and bilateral agreements and so on and so forth. I think that what we're looking at is possibly yet another clue that there is some real factional infighting going on at the level of the powers that be at the top of the world food chain, so to speak. Anyway, that's it for my news and views. Cross your fingers. I hope that I will get this as part 1 and 2, and we'll see you on the flip side, folks. God bless.